Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Ty. Our guest today is Jason Pikoos, Managing Partner, Technology and Innovation at Connor Group. In this episode, Jason returns to discuss how AI continues to reshape the accounting world. From automation to predictive analytics, we explore how AI is revolutionizing finance and what professionals need to know. Now, our host, Jotham Ty.
Hey, Jason, welcome back to the Accounting Life podcast. Oh my goodness, I know you have been doing the show with us for a while now because this hot topic of AI continues to stay hot. I think for good reason, and I know you feel the same way. So it's good to catch up, and I think our audience is going to be excited to hear about what the latest is in that front.
Well, thank you for having me here. I always enjoy joining these podcasts and frankly, just chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. And I know we're recording this on a Friday. I don't know when it gets published, but it's just giving me good Friday energy, and it's definitely going to carry me through the rest of the afternoon. So maybe just starting high level, what kind of new trends? It's probably been a quarter, maybe 2 quarters since we last caught up. But what are some of the new trends that you're seeing in the market as it relates to AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're actually publishing a survey in the next couple of weeks, or maybe 2 weeks or so around it, and it's interesting to observe. I mean, one of the trends that maybe not so new, but it has been corroborated, is the fact that adoption has been very slow. Actually, I think McKinsey just published something that said that 92% of companies are investing and 1% have something that they would define as mature. So that may not be surprising and maybe not a new trend, but it's certainly a consistency in trend. I think our expectation on the other end is that we will see acceleration, but moderate acceleration. I think where some of the other trends that we're observing right now, obviously agents and agentic AI is the one, the talk of the town right now. I do worry that people, once again, like AI, it's like the panacea for everything. It is not, but it does allow you to create a combination of workflow and agents or AI together, which is really, really exciting. So we see that, and I think there'll be a lot of exploration around that, although I doubt tons of people are actually going to call it production adopt it significantly. I think the other thing we're seeing a lot more is the conversation on governance right now. People are, we've been talking about governance for now coming on, I don't know, 12 months, give or take. We published our governance model probably 7-8 months ago, but people weren't doing much and didn't really figure out. Now we've seen acceleration within organizations. It may not necessarily be in finance and accounting, but other parts of the organization where it's suddenly realized we can't sit on the sidelines. And now I'm seeing CIOs and CTOs starting to get very worried about, it's not that we have no controls whatsoever, but do we have some structure of how to tackle this? So those are probably some of the key items I'm here observing right now.
Well, I know we've been talking about governance for a while, but I think as adoption picks up and more tools are being used, it's, I think, finally going to get the focus and the concentration of efforts that it deserves. I think it's such an important topic, especially for the types of clients that I know your firm and my company work with, which are SEC regulated companies that require this level of rigor in terms of compliance. But I actually wanted to point out something that that surprises me, but doesn't surprise me, hearing about the low adoption rate. I guess if you really kind of parse out, okay, are you using ChatGPT just to ask about recipes versus using it regularly? Maybe that's where we're seeing some of those numbers get more refined. But I actually take that, and I don't know if you agree with this statement, Jason. I think the low adoption is hopefully encouraging to those that aren't adopting yet, that they are not behind. There's still time because everyone else is learning it. So yeah, I mean, do you think that could be a plus in that way?
It's an interesting one. And it's interesting to define adoption because that is a curious question. I do think that if you just say how many people are using ChatGPT type of technology in-house, that percentage is much higher, but it typically tends to be quite sporadic. I think people use it and it's not a defined component of what we do day in and day out. We actually did a survey at Connor Group. We have a chat tool that we use. 3/4 of our firm uses it, which is amazing. Although it raises question, but what's the other 25% of the firm doing? And of that 75% that are using it, 24% of them use it once or twice a month.
Oh, wow.
That's super curious. So yes, we have, as a firm, we have a lot of people using it, but actually the use is actually quite low and inconsistent. To your question of, yes, you are right. I do think we are encouraging people to learn and experiment and explore, but to say that you have fallen behind at this stage would probably be an inaccuracy. There are some companies that are certainly running ahead, but that is absolutely more of an exception than the rule right now. But I do, on the other hand, think that if you have no plans to do anything around AI, then you are definitely behind. Because I think that is a very clear trend in there. And the statistics of all the measures from all the surveys that I'm seeing, it's in the 90s are investing and exploring and planning to do AI. And our survey even showed that, and we were still surprised to see it was a major drop, but still there were about 14% of respondents that said they had no plans. Now that strikes me as you're going to fall behind. Now, fall behind imminently, maybe not, but with no plans, it means that this is not a technology that you can just plug and play with as much as we would like it to be. So not adopted, probably not behind. No plans, you definitely are behind.
We've known each other for a few years now, and you and I come also from an accounting background where we, I think, have a more practical lens than most on trends that are happening. And, truth be told, in years past, there have been all these claims about RPA changing the way everyone is. But, I think your point about not even having any plans to look into it or adopt it, I think you do run the risk of falling behind. I agree with that statement 100%. I think you're obviously closer to a lot of the statistics and the metrics around this, but there is clear, tangible use cases that people are doing, and it's only increasing over time. And expectations, and I can speak to this as management, our expectations as management to our teams is that we are leveraging these tools as much as possible so we can produce more as a business, especially in this type of environment. So I just wanted to agree with that point specifically, because I think it's an important one. If you're not behind yet, you're not that far behind, don't worry. You as a corporate accountant still have time to learn and understand how this fits into your day-to-day. But if you're not planning on it, you might find yourself in, maybe a year's time or maybe even less, being really behind.
Agreed. I agree. I think we'll see a lot more happening in this year. And I think there's going to be a mounting pressure. Is it the board? Is it your investors? Is it your future investors where you say, hey, I want money, and they ask you around, okay, well, what are you doing as an organization? How are you leveraging this technology to be cost efficient, to grow if you're responsible for growing the business? I mean, it'll help you on many different fronts. And if you're not using it, there is undoubtedly going to be growing pressure from many stakeholders.
This is more looking at it from a founder's lens, but your statement there just reminded me of something I just watched. I think it was last week on a SaaStr podcast or some kind of show, but it was something along the lines of, if you're running a business, you could be growing 100%, triple, double, but without an AI story, you're likely not to get funded. So I think that's, I know VCs aren't really necessarily the Bible in terms of where the market will go, but I think there's enough known pressure and different stakeholders in the whole capital ecosystem that I think will kind of push this along in the way it has. And one specific area that we're definitely hearing a lot of buzz about, and you touched on it earlier, agentic AI. Agentic sounds like a cool word that rolls off the tongue well. Jason, I know you'd be the right guy to ask, what does that mean? And can you maybe break it down in layman's terms and why the market is excited about it?
Yeah, I'm super excited about agentic flows as well. So maybe it's good to define what an agent is, and then you can define what agentic flows are. I mean, an agent effectively is a piece of technology, if you want to think about a system that is trained to perform a specific action or task, or maybe a series of actions or tasks, and it typically is looking to do so quite autonomously. In my opinion, if you're talking about an AI-oriented agent, it typically means that agent is connected to some sort of generative AI model. There are people that are using the word agents for programmed agents. To me, that's just traditional technology, and it's great and it's very powerful. It can have its uses, but it's probably not what we would think of as an AI agent. So if you have an agent that's tasked with doing this, maybe it's reviewing documents and extracting data, maybe it is making decisions, whatever it might be that an agent is tasked to do. An agentic flow allows you to effectively, what you might think of as, combine a sequence of these agents together to perform an entire process. And the beauty of agentic flow exactly is it's not just a linear process, it can include decision points. It could be, hey, one agent speaking to another to complete a task. It could be an agent looking at stuff, making a determination of the path that's going and handing off to specialized agents that do different tasks. It could be yes, no options. You could have review agents. There are many, many use cases. The Anthropic actually published a really nice paper that defined all these different types of agent flows. But it's the ability to now perform a sequence of activities, which is quite amazing. Where three-way match, two-way match is a difficult thing to perform, and it includes a series of steps. But you can architect agents that will extract the data, do the comparison, summarize the differences, write an email. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you can do now, and you can really architect a process as opposed to using ChatGPT to perform a thing for me right now. And that's what's exciting, because you're now moving away from AI or generative AI doing a task for you to generative AI performing a series of tasks and having agents that are specialized and very, very good at performing their one task.
That's exciting. And even just like from a personal application perspective, ChatGPT has these agents now. So you don't just ask ChatGPT about the best mole recipe out there. It can book a reservation, and maybe if the reservation is not available, execute other backup plans that you have, or maybe add a movie night if you're doing someone. I mean, the possibilities are just like, I know you and I spend a lot of time just thinking about how cool these possibilities are, but agentic AI is a key expression these days. So I'm glad you defined that for our audience, because I'm sure they're hearing it a lot from people around them.
Maybe one other little thing to note about agentic AI, which historically, especially, and this is very relevant in finance and accounting, the reason why I find it, there are many reasons why there's a lot of manual work, but one of the big reasons is there's a lot of small tasks we perform in finance and accounting, which historically have been very difficult to justify automation because the cost of automation is too high. Agentic flows and agentic technologies are becoming very easy. And what we expect is you'll be able to automate even a small thing. Hey, I only spend an hour on this a week, but the reality is it only takes me 2-3 hours to build this. And therefore, building automation to solve smaller problems will actually be quite useful. And therefore, now we can create automation that actually deals with lots of little things for us, as opposed to, unless it's a critical mass, it's not worth wasting our time. So it's an exciting space.
We don't have to know how to code.
Nope.
We can give instructions through just natural language prompting, and it's obviously I'm that, but Jason, this like podcast episode that we will record a year from now, like I think we're still going to be blown away about like the new things that we learned then. But I want to zoom back into maybe the accounting profession specifically. You mentioned this earlier, adoption levels aren't high, and I don't know if the survey was specific to finance or accounting or broadly, but that sounds generally true, that whether it's finance or other functions, it's not surprising that it's low. But if we're in February now, like we do this podcast episode in December, like how do you think that changes specifically for accounts?
Yeah, I think we will see a lot more adoption. Will it be, I think how we were showing still people, other than the chat bot was probably in the kind of the mid-teens had adopted something, low to mid-teens. My guess is that we'll see it accelerate and grow, but it'll probably be in the 20s or 30%. That's, to be honest, I think where we're at, because we're still talking to a lot of people, and there are a lot of foundational issues that people are still trying to fix. I think people are still exploring and trying to figure out the ways to use it. So I think we will have those that have been exploring and investing time moving into that implementation phase. I still think we'll have a lot of learnings this year. I also think that people are trying to figure out, what's the technology direction do I go? Do I just wait? I use NetSuite and I'm just going to wait for them to deploy AI for me. And that'll be a very easy way to access these forms of technology. They probably will also be, in some respects, I had to say, the more simple versions of the AI, because it's AI purpose to kind of fit within this bigger architecture. Are they going to wait for a purpose-built application out there? Hey, there's some specific AI platforms out there and technologies, Clarities or whatever of the world. Are they going to wait for that to have a use case for them and a new one to solve their use case? or they're going to try build it themselves. By the way, my hypothesis right now is I think to try build it yourself, in other words, kind of piecing together a RAG database and chatbot and an API and some sort of I guess agentic flow technology and trying to make it yourself. To me, that feels like the dangerous path to go down this right now, just because it's easier technology, but it's not easy. There is complexity in getting these models to give you the right answer with high accuracy and citations and audit trails and those many things that we need in finance and accounting. So personally, if I was giving somebody any advice about the direction to go, either wait for it and find out what's coming out in your existing technology and leverage it, or find purpose-built applications. I think right now will probably give you the best value and the best within a reasonable time. To build it yourself, I think we'll see a heck of a lot of wasted money in that space. A lot of people will build decent tools that help a lot of people, which actually means a tool that nobody will use, because nobody is looking for the okay tool to help me moderately achieve an outcome. We all want something that's very good at doing what we do, or we choose not to use it.
Well, I want to add to that, Jason, and I think, first of all, I am hearing that more so in the Fortune 500 area where internal IT teams are looking to do homegrown AI tooling for things like finance and accounting, where they have little specialization in it. One example and point I will add is, I do think it is dangerous because your AI is only as good as the data that it has available to them, and if it's all happening within a bubble, how effective can that AI really be, right? If all you're able to do is digest or ingest invoices, specific to your industry, and maybe, you're in a phase of business where more of your vendors are concentrated in a certain type of spend. I mean, you're not accounting for a lot of factors that make like AI, especially the predictive features, like powerful and accurate.
Not to mention, you get that software that's built out there will continue to add features and functions. Software thinks about the user experience of the user interface, the flow. Can you build in-house an AI that can extract data from a document? Okay, great, magical. But that's not how a person works. A person works where they go, how do they find the document? How do they load the document? Once they extracted the data, what do they do with it? What's the sequence? The million different types of document. I mean, there's just a lot to it. So right now, I think I would lean away from, at least for finance and accounting teams, and this is my opinion, I may change, I reserve the right to change this opinion entirely in a year's time, because that's how quickly this technology is working. But as we stand right now with what the models can do and the technology surrounding it, go buy something. Use either existing or buy a technology that's purpose-built around this space. Trying to build it yourself, I think, will result in just frankly, just as I mentioned, a waste of money.
Also claim to be a fortune teller here. But I do see maybe a continuing trend to try to build homegrown AI to do finance and accounting automation. That trend might go up, but I think there's going to be a certain point where, people are going to realize that just like pre-AI, right? And like homegrown solutions today. I mean, that's not the preferred, for some organizations it might work, but more times than not, the, word solution are the ones dedicated and that have expertise in that particular area that's being automated. So we'll see. And I, always love speaking in terms of trends with you, but that's definitely something to look out for. As we wrap up here, you mentioned your firm, Connor Group, did a survey recently. You touched on and pointed out some of the trends that you've already seen there, including the adoption rates. What other observations or predictions can you share with our audience here, about AI and particularly what you think will happen in 25?
It's a good question. An interesting one was around the budgeting side of the house. We are seeing an increase in the amount of budgets. Budgets are still very decentralized. And I think that will continue. I think effectively what organizations seem to be doing is telling the teams and the functions, hey, you have your budget, you figure out how you want to use it for AI. And I think that is very good for moving quickly and for innovation and for experimentation, as I said, moving the ball forward. I do think that is going to change. Maybe not in 2025. So I think we'll see a lot more budget in 2025. I think we'll see a lot more investment in 2025. But I also think that will evolve over time, because effective deployment of any, call it enterprise-wide technology or capability, is invariably at some point better done with some centralized governance. Now, will it be all totally centralized? That's the million-dollar question. But I do think we will see some centralization of at least avoiding duplicative capabilities. Governance is going to be something that you're going to want to manage centrally, coordination and spend. So that was the one thing. It's still interesting to see a lot of decentralization. Our expectation is we'll see some more centralization. One of the other things that was interesting, although in all honesty, not surprising, it was surprising that it didn't show up last time as high, but the challenges to adoption, this time of the top three, data quality made its way to the top three. And it's surprising that it wasn't there before. It's not surprising that it is there now, because what I'm expecting and what I think we're realizing is that a lot of people want to be able to use AI to do data and analytics. And it's a really, really emerging and interesting use case. It creates an entirely new form of relationship with data, the ability to just ask questions of your data, right? And Jotham, you and I were chatting about one of those a little earlier. Is an amazing, amazing capability. It just doesn't work if you have garbage data. And I think that's what probably we've seen this actually, if you look at the survey, one of the top areas where people want to adopt is analytics, FP&A. It actually didn't increase a lot period over period. And our guess is because now people are realizing to do that, you need good data quality. And you suddenly start realizing, oh my gosh, my databases are just a total mess. Or I'd like to ask this question, but actually it's not in the data anywhere. It's in somebody's head. So I think data quality, which I say it was a new trend to see it pop into the top three, maybe a little less surprising. But I do think that what that's telling us and what we expect is there'll be an enormous investment in data infrastructure to be able to really effectively bring this data together. But I think there'll also be an investment in data quality, right? Data quality, data accessibility, robustness of data. Hey, I need to really think about if you want to ask your AI something about your data, is that data actually there? And if it isn't, okay, now how do we start capturing it? So those are probably a couple of the items that were quite interesting to pop out. 2025 is going to be a fun year to watch.
Yeah, well, I couldn't help as you were describing that. Like, there's probably ways that AI can help with data quality.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, there's going to be limiting factors. And although there might be workarounds to solve it for that, I was just thinking to myself, okay, if you're an organization that's been stuck on manual spreadsheets for a while, you're not on any kind of SaaS solutions, whether it's a Zora for billing or Gapify for accruals, everything's in spreadsheets as journals. Like, you don't have a lot of data to power the analytics that you want downstream. But it wouldn't surprise me further down the road if there's some kind of AI that just combs through all of your spreadsheets, your different systems. Might, and maybe those humanoid robots going through your stuff. Some kind of AI. I mean, yeah, that's how crazy this line of thinking can go, Jason. So before I get too crazy, probably good time to wrap up. But Jason, I appreciate you coming on the show as always. I think this is a good regular segment to have if you don't mind coming back again in a few months. Yeah, I appreciate you joining the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I guess not sure when this will be published, but happy Friday, everybody. And thanks for having me, Jotham. It's always a pleasure being on the podcast.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at gapify.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.